Kate Assaraf built a 7-figure haircare brand from her kitchen table with $40,000 and no help from Amazon, investors, and 0 paid influencers. Kate is the founder of Dip, a sustainability-forward haircare company. Her conditioner bar was named Oprah Daily #1 pick for curly hair. She's distributed in over 800 small retailers, most of them independent shops on Main Street. In this conversation, Kate makes the case that the standard playbook is actually a trap. She walked us through the recipes, what she did instead, and what actually takes to build a profitable brand on your own terms. I push back hard on this. I bring her the strongest objections most founders will raise, and she has answer for all of them. If you have been told the only way is the loud way, this is the conversation that shows you the quiet and sustainable one for both your brand and yourself. Kate, by the end of this conversation, what are people going to learn?
They're going to learn that you can build a 7-figure successful business without having to put your products on Amazon and lose that relationship with your customers and your retailers.
All right, that's quite contrarian because everyone is telling us like, oh, you're losing money, you're leaving money on the table if you don't use Amazon or if you don't search for founding or other things. But you had start and build a very successful business without it.
Yeah. And the money you're leaving on one table is opportunity and money on another table. And I think that the table where my money is circulating with my customers is much more purposeful than the sales I would be getting with Amazon.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, one of the simplest explanations is that the money that is used to shop locally and used within a community, because we drive a lot of people off of our website and into our independent retailers, that money benefits the people who are spending it. And so if you're shopping in your town, you're funding your firefighters, you're funding your schools, you're funding your roads. And that to me makes much more sense than everyone taking their money and their salaries and kind of sending it off, siphoning it off all into Amazon's pocket. And of course, a little bit for the brand. But what I've heard from other business owners is that the margins you get on Amazon, it's like a moldy carrot someone's dangling. It's not a carrot with like lots of riches at the end. It's actually like a very squeezed, dry, old carrot that comes back your way.
Yeah, because I assume there are a lot of things that quote-unquote successful businesses that launch on Amazon don't share, like maybe the amount of money they spend on ads to actually push the product. Even I heard some pay for reviews and all the other stuff. And speaking of that, you don't even use influencers, which nowadays it's unheard. Like everyone is like pushing user-generated content or paying influencers to promote their brands. How people hear about you?
So I think what happens is when you develop a reputation you kind of turn this contrarian way of marketing, anti-marketing. You put that out there, people start to build trust, and we're in a trust recession right now. So that trust is kind of starts to snowball from consumer to consumer. So someone buys Dip because someone else they know uses it. Generally, it's really a word of mouth thing. And so whether that spokesperson for Dip is a D2C customer or a store owner that's tried every version of shampoo and conditioner bars and puts Dip on their shelves, that social proof is tangible. It's real. Unlike someone who is clearly paid to say something is great. And then you look at the next video and you can see that they like a different shampoo a few videos back. I think people are tired of, buying things online that seem great and seem like there's all this digital hype around them, only to find out that all of that hype was manufactured by the brand.
Yeah, so true, because we all bought some things either from Amazon or Temu or others where you receive this product that is unusable sometimes or doesn't have the hype in reality. And still, like, some people might say that, all right, but this can take ages to spread through word of mouth. But you start this business 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time. It takes a very long time, and it's very intentional decision making that gets you here. And it's saying no to a lot of things. And also it was very risky. This method was risky. And I knew that even though the method was risky, if my brand started to, show signs of decline, I could abandon that plan and then start using influencers and go on Amazon. Like that door was always open. But part of me, the marketing side of me, and just kind of the puzzle solving part of me, wanted to know if I could build a genuine word of mouth brand in a day of digital pollution.
And that's a nice approach, because it's paid the benefit that, first of all, when something is having a unique approach, can like overshadow the other approaches, because people will start talking about it. And I noticed that you've been in Oprah Daily, the number one recommendation, and like this type of word of mouth and PR, it's happening because the product is good, because you have this approach, rather than like paying someone to talk nice about you and so on. And I wish this will be the case with many products, but in order to arrive at this point, like so you mentioned there are a lot of risk. I know that you put from your own pocket around 40K at the beginning to start the business. Apart from that, what other risk did you take?
Well, at one point, my contract manufacturer closed and went bankrupt. And they were exclusively making our bars and no one else's bars. And I developed these bars, and the formulas were very, very special and unique to us as a brand. And I had to decide if I was going to find another contract manufacturer that might not make bars exclusively for us, or the formula exclusive to us, or do I have my own factory? And I decided the risk of sharing my formulas with another contract manufacturer was too high. We decided to start a factory. We got the equipment, we got the rental space, and then within a year we had to double that, but doubled the size of the factory and grow. I never went into this company thinking I was going to be a factory, the U.S. manufacturer, right? I thought I was going to be more sales and marketing, which is my favorite thing. But I'm saying it with a smile, but I was very, very much frozen in indecision and running out of time. Because the longer it took for me to decide, the less inventory I had as things started to sell. So it was almost watching like the hourglass with like the sand. I could see my product going through to the bottom, and I was like, I'm running out of time to make a decision. I have to start a factory from scratch and get a team assembled. And I was able to do that, which was very scary. But in the long run, it's been the best decision I've ever made to be vertical, because what I'm seeing now is a lot of my friends, my peers in entrepreneurship, are really struggling with contract manufacturer price increases. There's no transparency between the raw materials and the finished goods. So they don't know what the price increases are made of. It's kind of like a mystery. And then, every hand that touches your product before it gets to you to sell, it chips away at your margin. So I'm able to I actually have better margins now than I did when I was purchasing from a contract manufacturer.
Yeah, I bet. And can you please share how much it took to put together the factory?
So if the first thing it was, a lot of the actual risk in that was the time and not the money. So in that, I found a place that was, initially the first place was $2,500 a month. It was a space. I have the manufacturing process is not that robust. I needed tanks, and I needed labor, and I needed my molds, and some of that stuff I got back because I owned it. And so, it started like that, very, very rudimentary manufacturing, back to basics. And then I had to kind of build as I could month after month and reinvest. So, I would say with labor and materials and equipment, it probably was just to get it off the ground was another $80,000-$90,000.
Okay. Yeah, it was a lot. And obviously there is that you already mentioned, and I'm thinking like, all right, you have the opportunity now to kind of have control rather than depending on someone else. And I think that's very underrated in the direct to consumer brands, because often we think, you can have cheap manufacturing in China or wherever, but look, like, I don't know, tariffs or other political things can happen, wars and stuff, and you end up in a position in which you don't have anymore the.
Cheap manufacturing can become expensive overnight. And if you have no control, you have no idea what the future is going to come and what levers are going to be pulled that totally can take you out of business. It's kind of scary actually, and I'm watching it around me all the time. I didn't know that starting, going vertical was going to be such a huge benefit. That happened to be like a happy accident, because I was very nervous to have my own facility. I had no experience in that. I only knew the beauty industry. I didn't know the manufacturing industry. They're different. But the brain is an amazing thing. You just learn the things as they come your way. There's no point in being scared. You just got to let your brain do its job.
Yeah, true. And that's the thing, like, because often people think, oh, you just need money and that's it. You can find solutions if you have the money. But sometimes using your actual thinking and problem solving capabilities, you can end up in a situation in which you find solutions. Yeah, and maybe speaking of money, because often people think like, all right, sounds cool, but without VC funding, you're not able to scale. What do you tell those?
Well, you have to bank on yourself. Basically, I started with 40,000, and then I made sure I had the sales to grow and reinvest. And the first 18 months in business, it was just me. I was the only person building, and I brought the brand to seven figures very quickly. Just kind of knowing what it meant to be a sustainable customer myself, knowing what the frustrations were, engaging with my customers, and I went all over the country meeting sustainable store owners and sustainable customers, both all over the country, to find out, like, what does sustainability mean in one part of the country? It doesn't mean the same thing in Connecticut that it does in Ohio, than it does in California, than it does in Texas. Like, all of these, different parts of the United States have different attitudes towards it and different standards, and really getting in and learning the things that data points can't teach you was, I think, the key to growing. And I think being an accessible founder for our store owners, and making sure that I did everything I could to reinvest in our small retailers, when every other brand kind of uses small retailers, like they kind of build their business on the backs of small retailers and then go into big box and Amazon. I made a promise to them that that's not my plan, and I've stayed true to it. For me, like, sustainability is not just about what I can do for myself, it's what I can do for my community. And my community happens to be refill stores, and that is bigger than my own brand. And I think when you build a company that way, and you build that network, that you rehumanize commerce, you have a better time with success. And I'm not going to say I have off the chart success. It's not what I have at all. But I have enough success to grow and reinvest in my brand little by little, and, pay my team well, take care of my customers, and really celebrate my repeat customers, and really celebrate my retailers. And that is way more important to me than the clout of having a brand like on the top one page of Amazon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, indeed, because, and I want to tap a bit more into that, because you built, if my research is correct, you build relationships with over 800 small retailers.
Yeah, it's more like 400 to 500 at any given time. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so my research was wrong, but still hundreds of retailers
Yeah.
in just 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the secret behind that? Apart
Well,
of the things
yeah,
that you just mentioned.
it's all about perspective, really. If I think about it, in my graduating class in high school, we were only around 300 people. It's very easy to get to know 300 people. It's not a lot of people. And so I think about now this is like they're my coworkers, my retailers. And it's very easy to get to know people your ambition isn't scaling to oblivion. My ambition is to have such a solid network of retailers that talk to more people than I could ever talk to genuinely about the products, human to human, face to face. While everyone else is going digital, I'm going analog. and my stores are analog. And I love that. Like, I feel that growing that network is way, way more, it's a more profitable path, to be honest, because your CPA is zero in that way.
Yeah, true. But I'm thinking like, all right, so you you build those relationships, you put the product in their stores and so on. But how from that they understand that, all right, this is a product that it's something that I should, I don't know, have more of, or to position on a better shelf or more visible and so on. Like, how you have something in that, or they just see, all right, this is selling like crazy, I should put it in on the front shelf, or
So my store, they're all independent retailers. So all of their stores are crazy different from each other, and they are in control of their own merchandising. Of course, we can come in and help them one way or the other. But what's amazing is that the stores know best, and you trust people to know best what works for them and their customers, especially in the different, locations around the United States. We have one store right now. She's about to hit $200,000 in sales of dip sales, just dip in her store. And that is like, when you think about, a shampoo and a conditioner and, a few other items, that is a huge deal in one store that's maybe like 400 square feet. It's like, so that kind of success, when you see that, all over the place, it's you know that you're supposed to trust those people that are in the front lines of their own store.
yeah, absolutely, because they are facing their clients every single day, and the way you build that relationship with them, they build a relationship with the customers, and they know best what to do. And when it comes to like growing, because I love the fact that you mentioned that you don't want to grow by all costs, and to do it in a way that, speaking of your brand, that is sustainable, like in a sustainable way for you as a founder, because often we live in the hustle culture where everyone is like pushing, I grow, grow, grow. If you don't grow like crazy, you don't have a successful business. Doesn't matter if you don't have energy to live after that.
Yeah, that sounds miserable. That's not what I got into
Exactly.
business for. I got into business knowing that I wanted to support the refill movement because I'm part of it. I'm someone who refills my things in my household, my laundry detergent, my hand soap, spices. I refill all sorts of things. But I wanted to, amplify the community. I wanted to make sure, I have two children. I wanted to make sure I could live a life with my children and see them. And I also wanted to really, really make sure that my team was able to go home at the end of the night. There's no benefit to me to have a stressed out team. And even though it started with just me, now we're a team of 7, and the 7 people on the team are allowed to, take vacation. Like, they don't have, I don't know. I would never want anyone worked to the bone on my team. And that's really important to me. Some people really want to squeeze as much as they can out of their employees. I find that a little bit despicable, but
We
that's,
look at you, Amazon.
yeah. I mean, the nightmare stories of Amazon, especially during
Yeah,
the
it's
prime time, it's
crazy.
like, it's horrifying. And people, turn a blind eye to it because of savings and convenience. And I know that those customers are not my people, right? Like, they're not the customers of Dip, or maybe they are, and that's how they kind of balance their universe. Um, like, there's really no right and wrong way to behave as a customer, I think, except issuing chargebacks for something you've received. I think that's a weird one. But other than that, I think everyone is welcome to shop sales when they come around. There's no judgment.
Yeah, true. And speaking of sustainability, because I'm not sure if I'm correct again with the research, but if I'm not wrong, you're using synthetic fragrances over essential
Yeah.
oils.
Yeah. I
Why?
don't sit at the church of essential oils, is what I say. And what people don't really realize is it's not that they don't realize, they don't really think deep enough. They think like natural, better, synthetic, bad. And that all that there's so much information out there that kind of, it totally ignores what happens in between good and bad on both of those spectrums. So, synthetic fragrances can be made, allergen free or mostly allergen free. They can be homogenized so that they're the same in every batch. They're, there's not a lot of well, they can be phthalate free, which is very important, which is one of the biggest endocrine disruptors. And on the other side, you have essential oils, which the farming practices can be questionable. You don't know whether they're all coming from the same farm and whether there are pesticides on the plant. And in many cases, there are. And many essential oils are made with pesticides on the plant and they're cold pressed. So there's nothing on the ingredient list that on a cosmetic that shows what pesticides were on what plant before it was cold pressed. And I find that horrifying, actually. I if I had to choose for my own children, synthetics or all natural essential oils for my children, and not even myself, these like I would choose the safe lab made synthetics. And that is a choice that I would make for myself, but I don't expect everyone to feel the same way. I don't expect everyone to think about how much land it takes to get a few drops of rose oil. I don't think anyone really thinks in that way when they're purchasing. They think natural good, synthetic bad. But the amount of biomass you need to create natural fragrances, it's a lot. And in many cases, the more exotic the oil, the worse the farming and labor practices are for the people producing it. And so you can look at sustainability as natural versus unnatural, or you can look at it versus you can look at it as like, how is this impacting the planet and people? And how is it benefiting a certain group over another? And so I personally think that the beautiful fragrances we've made that are at the highest standards of clean to create a standard of clean, are way, way more sustainable and earth friendly than scenting our products with questionable farming practices. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and as someone that I've traveled quite a bit through Southeast Asia, I saw some of those practices, and the conditions in which people are working are like never seen. There are some documentaries now that showcase that, and it's crazy that in 2026 it's still happening. And same for a lot of other products, like probably one of the most consumed products on the planet, chocolate. Most of it is like child labor and so on. But it's crazy. Like, and this happens in a lot of space. Like I saw, I think last week, that Europe, where at least we have a lot of labels on products and so on, they want to remove the non-GMO label from certain products.
Did they say why?
Not truly. Actually, the law they try to pass quite privately, and some of the farmers find out about it and start publishing online. That's how I found, because usually those type of movements they like put it under the rug and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because it's one of the, like, I live in 11 countries so far, and one of the things that I still look into when I plan to, like, where do I settle, and I decide Europe, was this, because at least you have some sort of transparency over what you eat, what you put on your body and so on. But now I'm like, where is going? Like, Europe was like leading with this, and on that one, like, how hard is to do this in US to be as transparent as possible and truly earn that trust from the customers?
It's very difficult because people, especially in sustainability, people are always trying to gotcha. There's like gotchas, right? Like they're like, oh, you're you say sometimes you use palm oil and there's no such thing as a sustainable palm oil. Like, we got you. And what I can have to say back is, like, some of these ingredients don't mention palm oil at all in all your favorite brands, but sometimes in cosmetics, you can either use palm or coconut oil. They behave the same way. And sometimes it's a supply and demand thing. So, we prioritize this ingredient made with coconut oil, but sometimes that supplier might send us something made with palm. And as transparent as we try to be about it, we're like, chances are your product is not going to have palm oil in it, but I'm never going to say never, because of the supply chain. That is how it actually works. And other brands are pulling the wool over your eyes on that situation. And they'll say XYZ competitor never has palm oil. And I was like, I bet they might, and they just don't know. The problem is I've been in the industry so long, I've seen what happens behind the scenes where things are swapped out, and I will do my best to make sure that that doesn't happen. But there's certain ingredients that you can't guarantee that in, and the palm coconut trade-off, depending on price or whatever, is like that's one of them that I feel that people need to know about. But it's very crazy to, not crazy is not their word, but like it's disheartening to try and do good in the world and have your own consumer try and like, come at you like piranhas sometimes, trying to rip your marketing apart, even though the marketing is as truthful as I can make it without handing all of my information over to my competitors.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think when you're dealing with a product that it's directly used by customers rather than, I don't know, some of the, let's say, tools out there in which it's just a software and so on. Even those, like sometimes customers can behave in a certain way, but here, and that's the beauty of it when you're transparent, because either like when people come to you and you know the answer, you know why you make certain decisions, you're covered. And in the same time, like most of them, I believe they understand. But when it comes to competitors, like, did you have any of those crazy scenarios in which they try to, I don't know, get you out of the market or?
Yeah, I've had it. I mean, you'd think that the sustainable space is full of very nice business and brand owners, and some of them are. And I would say the cream of the crop is my friend Nora, who owns High Bar. It's like one of our biggest competitors, but she's a very dear friend of mine, and we have different
Nice.
customers. But I will say I've seen some very questionable practices from my other competitors in the space. I have right now, I'm battling one of these brands has come around and written 5 blogs about dip on their blog, in order to take our organic traffic from chat GPT searches. And so I've written to that company. I'm like, hey, don't do this. This is like a corny move. It's a cornball move trying to take our organic traffic. Like they're not looking for you. They're looking for me. It's like, but they do it. They've not responded to my request for them to take those blogs down. And I have no problem telling everyone Viore is a cornball brand. I have that with a few other of my competitors too. Like, I don't understand why you can't succeed on your own merit. I don't bother any of my competitors, and in fact, like I will embrace a friendship if they want one. But when you pull those kind of I think dishonest moves, you're really muddying up what it means to be sustainable and what it means to be like a good steward of the earth in general. Like I think it has to extend beyond beyond just the product. It has to go into behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so crazy when you think about it. Like, I have another example here. I work with coaches and consultants, and some of them are public speakers. And imagine that people target with ads their name. When you search for their name on Google, you'll see the competitor appearing on top of that. I'm like, how come will someone choose you when they clearly search for the name of the other person?
Yeah. It's like two
It's
people slow dancing, right? They're about to slow dance together and someone just slides in and takes over the dance. You're like, well, get out of here. No one asked you.
exactly. Oh
Find
my
your own
God.
partner. It's a very weird move, but it's like digitally accepted. It's considered digitally acceptable to bid on your competitors, keywords and stuff. And I guess, I mean, I guess that's just what's acceptable now. I find it a little bit gross, and especially now that everyone's trying to get recommended on the LLMs, like I'm seeing a new level of gross. Even just last night, I was up all night because someone has my website is dipalready.com. Someone opened dipalready.shop and stole all of our trademark stuff, all our trademarked materials, all our copyrighted materials, and have set up another site. So I spent all night, reporting to the government, looking at their IP addresses, getting in touch with the hosts, like making sure that everyone knew that some cornball out there was trying to steal our customers, and then offering like a dummy customer service thing. So what they're essentially doing is trying to flood they're like change the reputation of Dip, right? Because they're not going to fulfill orders. They're going to, and then have an empty customer service. So take someone's money, don't send them anything, ruin our reputation, and then not give that person any recourse but a chargeback. And then that person will go and be like, I bought something from Dip and I never shipped and blah, blah, blah. And so that is what I'm dealing with as of the last 24 hours. And this is why I want everyone to shop in store. If you shop in store, you don't have this shadow figure coming in and trying to take you away from the actual company you're trying to shop from. Like, and I find it so despicable what happens in the shadows of the internet. Why is this acceptable? And how does it happen? And who wakes up in the morning and does this? Like, what kind of person does that? What do they do with the rest of their day? I want to know who this person is. I want to know what they're using on their hair. And I want to know like how to get rid of them. Like, what, is it someone I know? Is it someone I don't know? I have no idea.
I don't know, like it's so frustrating to see that people are using their, because these people are smart. In order to pull that type of scam, you need to be smart. Why not use that brain to do something ethical?
I
And
agree.
it's like, why like you ruin someone's business, you may end up in prison at some point, because I don't think it's like you do this once, you did this twice, but at some point someone will find you, and so on. And I know this thing happens a lot with like super big names in the personal brand space, like
Right.
big podcasts like Stephen Barley, that he mentioned at some point that he daily report to Facebook countless ads that is using his basically face,
Yeah.
using AI tools and so on to push to products that he never promote, and so on. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's, I think this comes with success, and in the same time shouldn't be this way. But on that note, like, how do you plan to deal with this? Because the big dip grows, the big these problems will be.
Yeah. So this has been, if I look tired, it's because I literally dealt with it all night and it kept me up and it makes me sick. Like, I don't know how to deal with this as the company grows. I don't have that skill set. I don't know enough about, and this isn't an invitation for everyone to do this because now you know I don't know how to deal with it. This is like, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how to handle it. Like, I don't even know whether this person that set up this site is in the United States. I can't figure it out because I don't know enough about like this kind of detective work. So I don't even know what agency I go to. I went to like consumer fraud. I went to the government. I filed everywhere I could even think of, including all the things AI told me to do. But AI kind of tells you what you want to hear a lot of the time. So you don't really know. But yeah, I honestly, I don't know. And I will probably spend some time after this looking at it again and scratching my head and trying to figure it out. But this is not the normal kind of business challenges like of profitability, like your P&L, like marketing plans. This is not like the normal stuff you should have to deal with. It's mud being thrown at a company for what? Like, what is the point? And you know I don't know whether I want the digital world to thrive because I think it's amazing, or do I want it to just collapse? Like, goodbye social media, goodbye, Google Analytics, goodbye all of it. And like, let's go back to, 40 years ago when everyone was just shopping in person and there was like a code between buyer and seller. That would make me actually, I don't know. I go back and forth on whether that's the dream or is it like, what am I going to miss if we go back 40 years?
Yeah, true. That would be a good thought experiment. But yeah, first of all, I'm sorry that you have to deal with this, because I can imagine how frustrating it is. I
I can't be the only one, it's got to happen to everyone else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like happens a lot, especially nowadays when it's so easy to spin out websites with AI, or, and who knows, maybe it's some kid in his bedroom, like. But I'm like, dude, do something else with your skills. If you're listening to this, don't do this. It's not good. And one last. But speaking of lasting, like, and I want to draw a parallel between the online space and the real world. Like, do you have like what's the percentage, if you want, of revenue that's coming from the retailers, the small retailers that you partner with, and shopping online?
So I would say probably 70% of our revenue comes from our retailers, and the rest, the 30%, comes from online. So for me, the opportunity is blowing up our D2C. However, I love that dip is bought in real life by real people recommending it. You cannot buy that kind of authenticity. You cannot suddenly buy your way into that kind of network. That network is earned. That trust is earned. And so if someone wants to copy that marketing plan, they can, but it's going to take them a few years. And so, it's very hard for something that, like, I've built all these moats around my company that my competition can't say that they do. We do reinvest in our retailers, and we do make sure that they're taken care of. We don't undercut them at all. And then we also, because we don't sell on Amazon, they don't have to compete with something 24 hours a day, and convenience showing up at their door. That friction point of making someone go into a store, or not making someone, because you could still order online, but encouraging them to go shop in store is one of my favorite parts of my company. And it's the first thing marketers want to squash away. Whenever I talk to a marketer, like, the first thing you should do is get rid of this ridiculous notion that people should go into store. And it's like, no, it's not ridiculous to me. I know who these people are. I know a lot about them, and I want to see them succeed, and we can succeed together. In fact, it's like the more of us there are, the stronger we are.
Yeah, so true. And not to mention, of course, convenience is nice, but in the same time, what did convenience bring us to? Instead of like going shopping, we order to our doors and so on. And what leads to like less human connection, even like greeting your neighbor, or like talking to the person in the shop and so on. Those things are less and less important. And one of the things that you mentioned towards at the beginning, like that we live in a trust recession, this is one of the reasons, because we don't interact with people anymore. We just interact online, and online everyone can say whatever, and we don't understand what's true and what's not. And yeah, we live crazy times. In the same times, personally, I love technology, because indeed opens a lot of doors to people that otherwise won't be able to do much in life.
Absolutely.
But in the same time, it's like putting boundaries between humans. And some of those will be so hard to break. And speaking of humans and opportunities and online world, like, someone might listen to this and they'll feel inspired by your story. How they can copy your approach, maybe in another category, maybe in another type of business, without having to rely on the things that we mentioned, Amazon, VC money, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would say, say you're selling a hammer, your business is a hammer. I would find out where people are using hammers and where people are excited to use them. And I would find those real life activations. Maybe, like, I'm just using this as a very, like, placeholder example. Okay, maybe the fun thing about hammers is that there are kids' workshops in every Home Depot that they make birdhouses or Boy Scouts or whatever. I would find that super niche thing that gets people together, gets people having a good time, and gets something in someone's hand that makes them feel good, and then they associate your hammer with, that thing that they've made that the birds are enjoying. I don't know. It's a very off the cuff example, but
very good one.
oh, thanks. But I'm just saying, like, whatever it is, whatever your dip bar is, whatever your hammer is, like, find the people that you think are going to use it. Sometimes what you think it is not exactly what it is. And so, you can find out that, like, actually the group that uses your hammer are, like, kids looking for fossils in a certain part of the country. I don't know. I'm just like, now I've gone off the rails, but there's so much opportunity to find the human connection, and the human connection that gets people excited about whatever you're selling, whether it's a class or whether it's a, consumer product. Like, those are the things that really have a ripple effect that matters. When someone's siloed in their house or wherever they are with their phone and, like, scrolling through a million versions of what you're selling, and then you just add to cart based on whatever digital pollution that gets them to buy it. Like, I don't find that to be fulfilling, and I don't find it to be exciting. And I think that that dopamine hit we get when we shop that way is just it's like eating a piece of candy. It's like empty calories. Whereas when I know that, like, if I wanted to keep going with this hammer, if I wanted to buy a hammer where I live, I would go to our local hardware store that has, people living in my town working in there. Okay, I might pay like $1 more for the item there, but that person in that hardware store recognizes us as a family. They ask questions about stuff. They want to know what you're working on. They want to know the story of the hammer you're buying. And I find that a very, very fulfilling way to build community and just living your life in general as a consumer.
And I think that's the secret word, community, because when you bring people together and they start talking about the product, they start talking about how they use it, like you said, and all those things lead to new customers, grow in the community, grow in the business in a sustainable way, and like economy is going around in that community, and like only benefits. And I wonder, like you mentioned, like this small thought exercise to go back in time to imagine how we can do business in a way that is not so reliant on technology, not so reliant on selling online. And this is a good, amazing, I would say, first step. And once you have this, like once you start building the community, how you ensure that the product is good enough? And you can, if you want, you can switch the example. If you can continue with the hammer. But I love, by the way, seriously, that it's a super good example, and especially the example of like creating a birdhouse and so on.
I couldn't think of anything less emotional for me than a hammer. So that was what, you have to create the emotion surrounding your products, because like washing your hair, I don't think is that emotional. It's the result, obviously, but then you have to build the emotional story in order for it to mean anything in a marketplace where you're only going to be special for a minute before, someone comes and scrapes your website and builds something else,
Yeah.
you're anyone in commerce, like your time is limited for how special you can be. You see it. I mean, I'm very sensitive to beauty because I've been in the beauty industry for 20 years, and I see one thing gets popular. You see every brand come out with their version of that thing that is similar with a 5% difference from that base that was made popular. I mean, that's the biggest reason I didn't want to go to a different contract manufacturer. I absolutely wanted to. And eventually something's going to happen where someone, God, I hope not, but someone figures out how to make bars like ours. And when that happens, all I'm going to have is the standards, the good we do in the world. It's like someone's going to choose to support us over someone else because I don't hoard the profits. I absolutely pour them back into communities and back into, charities. And Surfrider being one, we've donated $50,000 to Surfrider, and they send people to fight plastic legislation in Congress. And I think if someone had to choose between buying from us and buying from someone who's like a copycat brand of us to save a couple bucks, I think they might choose us in the end.
Yeah, indeed, because these small things matter for most people, especially those that choose your product. And this is often overlooked because, we think, like a few cents there and there might make a difference. But in reality, if you think about what's behind the brand, what drives you, because it's so often you think, why someone starts a business? Because it's so hard. It happens a lot of annoying things like the one that you're dealing with right now. But there is something behind an entrepreneur. There is something that is more than just making money for them, for the family, and so on. And I think this spirit of entrepreneurs, it's something that builds not just, moves the economy, but moves the community, like you mentioned, in the right direction. And if someone's like, it's in this situation, they are like, they want to build a consumer brand right now, and they don't want to rely on Amazon, on VC founding, or run influencer campaigns. They want to do one thing by the end of this week. What that thing should be?
Well, if they're already selling, I would reach out to the customers that already love what you're doing and find out more about them. I mean, that's the easiest, cheapest way to do any of your own market research, because it really matters very little what the cloud of strangers think about what you're doing. The only people that really matter to any business are the ones that already purchased. That's the only like actual source of feedback I think that matters the most. And you see a lot of brands go out and try and get focus groups, and they try and go out and see what strangers think about what they're doing, but it's actually not the best pool to fish in. You really want to look at the people that made that emotional decision to part with their own money and choose you over the sea of others, and find out why. Find out what they think. Find out what they think is like the best thing and the worst thing. Always improve. Like we've made improvements to different accessories. We've made changes to certain things in the line. We've added things into the line that I would have never thought to put in, but like it's our customers that told us, it would be really great if you had like a serum or an oil for our hair. Like, and that's how you grow. And I think that's how you grow in a way that like means something to your customers, instead of constantly trying to get new ones. If you treat the ones you have as really the most important like celebrities to your brand, then I think that that's probably the most important thing. And I think just one more thing I see a lot of brands do is they have actual paying customers that should, for me, like they're coveted. They're like on the totem pole. They're like the highest on the totem pole for me. But then what they do is they give free product to everyone else who hasn't paid. And I was like,
Yeah.
what message are you sending to your customers? You know, it's like,
Plus, the
it's
feedback
like
that you get
being married
from
to someone and constantly like going and kissing other people. Like, I don't get it.
yeah, and the feedback that you get from free samples is not the same. Like you mentioned, if you commit money, you will complain if you don't like something about the product.
Right.
But the free samples, oh, thank you. I cannot say anything wrong. You just give it to me for free. Why should I complain about the quality or anything?
I know. And so in my company, in Dip, the only people that ever really get free samples are people that never ask for them. That's
Nice.
my that's my thing, because very often we do give free samples to not free samples, but we give like we gift our customers. Like, for example, one Black Friday, I just the calendar moved faster than my brain, and I didn't come up with a Black Friday thing. So what I did instead was everyone that purchased, we didn't advertise anything, but everyone that purchased got a Secret Santa gift. So if they were a new customer, they got kind of like an entry level gift. But if they were someone who was repurchasing during Black Friday, with even without a sale, we looked at their history, and we gave them something that we thought that they would like, specific to that customer. And that was like a really fun way to celebrate your own customers that doesn't cost a lot, but means a lot on the other side. And I'm constantly thinking, like, how would I want a company to treat me that I keep shopping with? And rarely do they ever treat them as well as we treat our customers.
And that's what makes you stand out. But since you're so full of good suggestions and answers, I have another question for you. What if they don't sell yet? They just have the idea, or they create a product and they don't have those paying customers to get feedback from.
So
How
they
are you
have the
gonna?
product, right?
Yeah, they have the product, but they don't have paying customers yet.
Okay, back to square one. You got to find where people are going to use it, right? Like, you have to go find the communities. You still have to do that. It's a dangerous step to skip, because if you're going to put a product out there and you don't really think of like the anthropology of how someone's going to use it, like you just really don't know. Like, say, I mean, you can even say if you're selling a rock, you don't know whether someone's going to use that as a weapon or a doorstop or a paperweight. You just don't know like what the community is going to do with it. And so it's best to find that community and see, maybe roll a rock into a group of people sitting around and see what comes of it. I don't know. But that's my suggestion, is really see how people interact with what you're doing. I think it's very much a lost art. And I think a lot of people could probably develop more of a word of mouth brand like the way we have if they just kind of slowed down and observed instead of constantly pushing forward and trying to force people to behave in a certain way.
And I personally believe that this will start to be the norm again, since
Me too.
like we won't be able to tell what's real or not online. And people will go back to human connection in order to build trust again, to sell their products, to understand the market, what market wants, and so on. And it's such an underrated advice. And thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure to hear your story, to hear the lessons and the suggestions that you have. And I'm pretty sure that those that stick until this moment, they probably have a playbook that can apply in order to launch a successful company.
Well, thank you for having me and being so generous with your time and your space and your audience. And I really appreciate it. And it's been a really wonderful time. And if you have made it this far, please check out dipalready.com, not the phantom site that's out there, dipalready.com. And if you have any questions, we're available on Instagram and TikTok at dipalready.
This was Kate Assaraf on Authority in the Wild. If this conversation made you think differently about starting and growing a consumer brand, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if these are your type of conversations, make sure to check the next episode here. Enjoy.